Up next in our Macross Delta Marathon is Bandai's Armored Parts Set accessory for their DX VF-31AX toys. These parts were exclusive to the Tamashii website, shipping in June 2022 for 16,000 yen before domestic tax and middleman markups. You won't find this Tamashii exclusive at Big Bad Toy Store, but if you're still on the hunt for a 31AX toy, or really any other toy, do click that link in the comment below, while you're subscribing, to do some shopping and show this channel your love. Tamashii exclusives come in a brown shipper box that houses the retail package. Make no mistake, this is a huge accessory, so expect shipping to cost a bit more than it does for the VF-31AX toy. Inside the retail box, you get 2 trays. The first tray includes a host of armor parts and the mission pack braces for Battroid and Gwalk modes. The second tray includes the display stand base, arm, 3 accessory arms with knuckles and fingers still on sprues, a bunch of braces, and there's also adapters for each mode, as well as a pair of rear landing gear locks, which of course we'll be talking about, and a full color instruction manual tucked behind it all finishes off the packaging. These parts are basically a recolor of the armored parts that were released after the first Delta movie for the 31S. If you really want an instruction guide on how to put the parts on, check out my review of the 31S parts by clicking the card above. There are plenty of paint differences here, but the only substantial differences are to accommodate the nuances of the 31AX that these parts attach to. The different canard size gets you a different attachment mechanism. On the 31S, we just pop that off, we slide this in. It kind of does fit in snugly, but then you lock it in by putting that piece back on. This peg goes right back into the toy, and that's how you put that on. For the AX, the larger canard, we now get an up and down moving piece, and we are going to use that to pinch the canard into position. Now, I doubt I'm going to be able to get this all done with a camera in front of my face because they're a little tricky to maneuver. That is definitely a different mechanism. Maybe not quite, there it goes, locked into place. Not quite as intuitive, but once it's on there, it's firmly on there. Again, this will peg in and can be knocked off as you move the arms, but not a huge deal. The AX also has beefier forearms. We have these covers here, nothing on the 31S or the Siegfried toys, right? They're pretty scrawny arms. So when we got armored parts for the 31S, we got this nice arm cover, which makes it look much beefier, as you can see over on this side. The actual attachment is exactly the same, just this piece here, which rotates around and then plugs into the hard point on the forearm. But on the 31AX, since we already have a little beefier arm, they didn't feel the need to put another cover on top of it to make it even beefier. So that's one of the differences here. Now, I will say this attachment is incredibly difficult to do. So, pick up the toy and be a little more careful than I am. Unchanged from the 31S, but still something I dislike, are these little brackets. They're actually braces. One for Battroid, one for Gwalk mode. It slides in behind the back here and goes up. And then it goes over the insignia, which I don't like because then I feel like I'm going to scratch my insignia at some point. And then you just keep bringing it up and it'll lock into position. Not sure if I've done that, but then that gives you a brace here so that the weight of these guns doesn't just cause this whole thing to flop backwards. Now the guns themselves do still have a nice opening mechanism to them, although I say nice, although I'm not so sure it's that nice. They have a hinge that's a hidden hinge, and so you kind of pop them open like so. And they are doing a little bit better job staying open on this toy than they did on my 31S, which always seems to want to close right back up. And there you go. Now I have the toy not on the display stand right now. I don't really recommend that because there is a lot of weight from these wing boosters. Now you see the wings lay flat, so at least that helps. They're not creating a lot of weight off the back of the toy. But even so, it's very cumbersome right now. The display stand will leave you feeling a little more comfortable with everything. Now, I didn't talk about the different attachment of the wings because basically they attach the same way. It's just a very slightly different shape. One less peg here. You could not take this booster and put it on a 31S toy, but it does just clip on in the exact same manner. Now I've got the toy on the display stand and I'm feeling much better about everything because it's a little precarious without the display stand. You can see the display stand has this extra beefy brace in the front and these two braces slash really platforms in the back that are meant for attaching these arms to. So what I can do is pop this in right here and then I can snake it around the front. And you're probably thinking, yeah, but why would you ever do that, dude? And the answer is that the arms with the extra weight on them often will just droop down. So what you're gonna wanna do is put this brace wherever you want that arm to be, and then it will hold the arm up for you. So that's why you need that. And you can kind of get an idea now of how high maintenance the armor parts can be. So in the beginning, toys are really stiff. You'll probably get away with some stuff. As the toy gets older and loosens up, you're gonna need all of these accoutrements just to make your display stand look, or your display look as amazing as you would like it to. And really that's what this thing is about. It's a very impressive display piece, but you're taking something that was really cool and fun to handle and making it very high maintenance. The missile bay features are unchanged from the 31S, so I'll just run through them really quickly. On these pods here, which do have nice ratchets, by the way. You have missile bays that open facing backward. You have also these long range missile bays, which are tucked inside. Well, they're probably medium range. It helps to have really long fingernails for a lot of this stuff. There we go, missile bays. And then all these guys up front are gonna open up as well. So if you ever thought there was a shortage of missiles on the original AX toy, boy, this pod alone is making up for it. And it's not the only missiles we get. Because there are also missiles in the chest and alongside the chest, right? We have these bays here. Open. There we go. Those open up. We can angle them forward to make them look a little better there. And then we have hinges on the outside, which you pull forward. And that's another thing. That's very clever hinges, often recessed, have to be pulled up to really expose the missiles. So it keeps the aesthetic really sharp while having these functional bay doors. And of course we have missile bays on the leg as well. So for these ones, you just want to reach your fingernail behind near the hinge and lift up. And then on this side, it's kind of towards the front here. We can pop open these like so. And there you have some nice beefy bays in the leg as well. Remember, the 31AX has ratcheting hip joints. So when you do get the thing on the display stand and you've supported the elbows, which is a little unfortunate, you do end up with a very beefy, impressive display piece. Now these armor parts weigh as much as the toy does, so you're essentially doubling this toy when you add all of this accessory onto it. And the end result, obviously, is a very, very beefy, if not very fun to handle, display piece, as you are seeing here. And I do have, because of ratchets in the hips and things like that, I do have a lot of options for how I display it, so that's certainly a positive. All right, let's compare it now to the 31S. So one other difference between the Kairos Plus and Siegfried is that there's fold crystals on either side of the head on the Kairos Plus, so they've actually made these missile bays a little bit thinner than they are on the Siegfried toy, which I hadn't really noticed before. which means you could probably take this chest and put it on this toy, but you wouldn't want to go the other way with it. The armors, you could go this way, but you probably wouldn't go that way again because you have thicker arms over here. They probably wouldn't wrap around quite as well. So those are your differences, and obviously the wing boosters you can't swap either. The accent works here. I like how this crotch armor has some accents. It was just totally plain over here. But otherwise, it's kind of mix and match. The other place where I do like what they did with the paint on the Kairos Plus versus the Siegfried are these missiles on the sides here. They've got white accents here. It's just kind of all gray over on this side. This looks much nicer to me, so I appreciate what they did there. And then if we spin the toy around, we get a little bit more accents on the wings. These boosters here have a little bit more red going on, but really it's subjective. Do you like the paint job? Very similar, just differences to accommodate the different toy underneath. So let's go ahead and continue on now to Gwalk mode. Here we are in Gwalk mode, and it's easily my least favorite mode. I think it just looks pretty awkward. A few things I harped on when I did the 31S review. There are a lot of shallow barrels on this toy, and I thought it would have been better if they put a little paint application, a little black or dark gray paint inside the barrels to give them some simulated depth. Similarly, these missile bays on the side would have benefited from a little dark color inside the bay. Moving the toy around to the back, a little dark color inside these big articulated nozzles would have been a nice touch. So those paint applications I thought could have been better. Once you've got the toy in Gwalk mode, you can slide this piece back in and then figure out ways to support the limbs, which I'm clearly not doing right now. It's very, very awkward. And again, I'm not a big fan, so I'm not gonna waste too much time on it. One thing I did complain about when I reviewed the 31S armored parts is that it really wasn't perfect transformation. Once you went from Battroid mode to Gwalk, you had to take the chest off because there are head lasers on a 31S toy that require you to open up to create the cavity, and you couldn't do that with the chest armor on. For the Kairos Plus toy, the head shape is different. You don't have to remove the chest armor. What the instructions say is take a lot of these parts off, everything basically but the leg armor, transform the toy, and then put the parts back on. And I highly recommend you actually do that. But on the positive side, just to know in the back of your head, you actually can transform this toy, in theory, without taking the parts off. I had a couple things pop off on me. This part in particular, it feels like there's a build issue here where the pegs don't fit in as tightly as they should. They're a little too big, and so they want to push out. But otherwise, it seemed like you could transform it perfectly, which is always good to know, even if you're not actually going to do that. But okay, let's continue on to Fighter. Before we get to Fighter, you may be wondering, could I do Gwalk mode without the display stand? And I think the answer is no. It might be possible if you continued to use the display stand adapter and had that pegged in underneath, because that links the front and the back. You can see where things are falling apart on me right now. I tried to remove it and then stand the toy up, and it just said, nope, not gonna do that. So be warned if you were really excited about a Gwalk not on a display stand, probably not gonna happen. A moment ago, I said that Gwalk mode was my least favorite mode, but perhaps I was hasty because I absolutely hate this toy in fighter mode with the armor parts on. Now, as you can see, it looks okay. I'm not even sure where I can touch this thing right now without causing problems. These big guns here are popping off constantly. I don't know, that didn't happen on my 31S to the same degree, so I don't know if there's a molding issue with the new wings and the hard points or what, but it's much less secure and it's super frustrating. And it continues to be frustrating as we turn the toy around here and get to the back end. where the pegs that go in from the wings into the leg armors, they don't fit nearly as securely as they did on the 31S toy. And the little pegs that go in from here into the legs are also a little bit cute. And so as a result, I have to be very careful in how I handle this thing without things popping apart. Now, one of my complaints that carries over from the previous one is just how stupid this whole landing gear situation is. So, like the 31 toy, the kneecaps house the wheels. The wheels are at the back here, and I mean, would they touch the ground? Like just barely. And we get these extra pieces you have to shove in to make sure that they would have some sort of clearance. And it's just a very poorly thought through and very poorly executed way to give the armor parts landing gear. Now, on the positive note, the armor parts have landing gear, so at least that's cool. Here, I'm gonna try to, I think as long as I pick it up by the legs and just hold the legs, I can get a little bit of whoosh around factor. But, oh God, the getting here has been nothing but frustration. So what's the moral of the story, kids? Use your display stands. They are pivotal to holding this giant mess together. Now this thing does just well enough where you could put it all together, make a really intimidating looking fighter mode, put it in a display case and not touch it. If your goal is to have something fun to swoosh around, this is going to leave you very sad. So don't have that goal. Just be like, look, I want to put it in my display case. I want it to look like it did briefly in Delta before all the parts got jettisoned. Here is my 31S toy. It is doing a better job handling. So if you have this and you're like, man, I hope when they do the AX, it's gonna be even better. It's the opposite. It somehow got more fiddly and difficult to handle in the second revision. So that is never what you wanna see. I did have a part break on me on my old parts, which is a plus for the new parts, believe it or not. This little piece here, which swings open, has a very tiny plastic attachment there. And I must have, as I was pulling it off the armor in Battroid mode, I must have, or Gwalk mode, just pushed it the wrong direction a little bit. And so it just snapped right in two. So now this piece will only work for me in fighter mode going forward, which is a bummer. So if you own that, if you own the old version, something to be careful of as you handle it. As for this version, you know, Bandai did something fun when they were doing the Frontier releases. They were doing these mix and match things. And I think they kind of went down that road in Delta with him using the Super Ghosts with part of the armor parts. I had some fun mixing and matching. You can see the pictures here. This was cool to me. Otherwise, these armor parts only display items. They take this toy and they make it much less fun. And that to me is a big bummer. They do well enough where I'm not like, oh, everyone should just throw it off and never even consider these. They're expensive and they only are for people who don't really want to handle the toys, but they do end up giving you a really cool display item. Check out my full review on anymoon.com. Leave me a comment if you have any thoughts, good, bad, or otherwise, and please subscribe. Thanks for watching, everybody.